Good to meet you.
Vijay Patel.
So you're the new owner,
Yes.
correct? All right, are there any questions for
Are you
Patel?
planning any big changes? No?
Nothing.
Okay,
Nothing.
No changes.
great.
Same hours?
Same hours.
Anything, Denise, or is there a motion?
Unless he wants to tell us about any sales coming up, but other than that, I don't have any
By the time I take over,
questions.
probably holiday is gone, so.
No, I think everything came back in order, so I don't think there are any questions.
All right, I'll make a motion to transfer an all alcohol off-premise liquor license, pledge of inventory and pledge of license.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, that's all.
That's it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank
Best
you.
wishes.
Thank you.
And is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, guys aren't ready?
No. Ann will be up in a few minutes.
Okay. I will go down to the special town meeting. So review and vote on articles to be placed on the warrant. So there's 4 articles. Are there 4 or 5?
There are 5.
5 articles. 4 related to the, I guess, athletic field development, and then 1 for some outstanding invoices. Is there a motion to place these on the warrant?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
And now we have to make recommendations on each. So the first is Article 1. This is for, what is it, about 18.3,
Yep, so.
for everything at Russo
go-
Field,
Go back,
including the
go back to the, article.
basketball
One more.
complex.
There it is, so there it is, yep, so,
Okay.
Article 1 is 18.3, correct.
So I guess first we can assign readers. So I'm assuming this would be, all 4 of these will be the recreational space. If that works for everyone. Good with that, Denise?
Yes.
And the 5th would be the,
It should be Mike White as the building inspector, it's his budget.
okay. Will he be there? Do we need him there?
We'll ask him to be there. I mean, if he can't be, then we'll do something else, but it's his budget. It came out of his budget. I don't really know more about it, but he should be the one to make the motion.
So is there a motion to have the recreational space read Articles 1 through 4 and the building inspector for Article 5?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, and now back to recommendations. Article 1. So is there a motion to recommend, not recommend, or any discussion?
First, I want to say you guys did a fantastic job last night presenting about it with all the different opportunities. It was everything that you said it was going to be, where you were going to come to us with the different options, and we can talk about it and understand how much those different options are going to impact us, you know, from a household to household standpoint, as well as, you know, what we're really looking at, what we need, and how we're going to meet that need in the short versus long term. So I thought it was fantastic. I think we need the indoor basketball court. So I would be in favor of going for the gymnasium with the building. My only slight concern would be parking. I don't know if it's possible to have an agreement with somebody across the street once that's built. I don't know how that's going to work, but otherwise I am 100% in favor.
Thank you, and I do agree with you.
So I am not in favor of Article 1. I am in favor of the alternative, Article 2. I just don't think in this financial environment that an $18 million expenditure is reasonable. Although we have additional revenue, we expect to come in, and I think the increase for the average household was estimated at about $215 if we went with the second, and over $400 with the first one.
Yep, so we put it up there for you. So
Okay.
I included in the package so that way we could see what it was.
And the hope is that the additional revenue would help to decrease that expected increase. I don't see it happening because we also have some additional expenses to look forward to, such as building a new school, and I realize that's in a few years down the line, but we also have a water treatment plant that we need to build. So I just don't think the timing's right.
I think we're really fiscally responsible in this town. And the numbers that you guys presented last night was about the average value of a household in West Bridgewater right now. So that wasn't including any of the new growth, new buildings, new homes that we already know are being built. Permits are already been pulled for these projects. So those numbers haven't even been included. So I honestly feel as though those numbers are going to be lower. I feel as though the impact is going to be a little bit less felt by each family. I think we have been extremely responsible with the tax rate the past few years. In the past 10 years. But since I've been on the board, we've been very favorable towards residences. No, I think this is something that we really need. If we don't do this, what would be your proposal for a basketball court?
I'm not proposing anything for a basketball court. I'm just looking at what the committee, and I thought they did a phenomenal job. The presentation was excellent. The work we saw ahead of time was great. I am just looking at the two recommendations they've made. They never asked me what I want to do about a basketball court. Obviously, they knew one option would have it and one option wouldn't. They gave me two options to pick one. Well, not to pick one, to recommend or not recommend, and I am not recommending Article 1. I would recommend Article 2.
Right. I do believe that the cost will come in less than what we're proposing the 18 for. I think that is high. I think there's a good chance it will be a couple $1 million less. I think with these projects we have to go high because there's no option if you fall short. If we were to do 14 million and then need another $1 million, we'd have to go back to town meeting. So with public project, and especially with our form of government, we have no option but to go high. So I do think it will come in less, but it still is very significant money. I completely understand the concern with the tax bills. But
And not to, I apologize, I didn't mean
No
to
worries.
interrupt you. Even if, let's just say that does come down to 16 million, again, we still have a water treatment plant.
still significant, absolutely.
Right.
Mhm.
All right, but it sounds like we'll vote it certainly, I guess. So is there a motion?
I make a motion to recommend Article 1.
Is there a second? I'll second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed?
Aye.
All right. So at town meeting, if Article 1 fails, we'll move to Article 2. This is the same complex, just without the basketball complex. Is there a motion or any discussion on this one?
I'll make a motion to approve Article 2.
recommend?
Recommend Article 2.
Right. Is there a second?
Now, if we is this going to show 3 people recommend Article 2, but only 2 people recommend Article 1?
It will, but I'm not going to vote not to recommend it for that reason.
Well, right.
Well,
I just want to make sure what the perception is.
so because it's a special town meeting, on the annual town meeting, everybody gets or receives those FinCom books, and it's pre-printed with the recommendations. But at special town meeting, those don't exist. So
Okay.
there's no written correspondence that shows the recommendations. So if Article 1 passes, and it needs a 2/3 to pass, if Article 1 passes, we never even discuss Article 2, so they won't even know what your recommendation was. But I do think that Anthony's correct, is that if Article 1 fails, and you don't vote tonight on your recommendation, in Article 2, they're gonna say, what is it? And you're gonna look at each other like, I don't know. So I do think, even though it seems silly, I do think you have to take a motion on it, assuming Article 1 fails, do you recommend Article 2?
Okay. Thank you.
Nope.
So is that a second?
Yes, that's a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Article 3 is for the turf field at the high school. Is there a motion on that?
I make a motion to recommend Article 3.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Article 4, which is the funds for the pickleball courts and tennis court and basketball court.
Make a motion to recommend Article 4.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And Article 5, the outstanding invoices for the building department. Is there a recommendation on those?
I move to recommend.
Is
Did
there
I
a-
say that right? I don't
Yeah.
think I said that
No,
right.
that works.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And one note, usually in the motions, usually in the approval for the motions, I always do it subject to town council review. I don't know, did you vote on the motions or only place in the warrant articles? I don't think you've.
We voted on placing the warrant articles.
Not
I
on
guess
the
we didn't
motions.
vote on the motions.
Okay.
So
I'll
is
just-
there a motion to approve the motions with town council approval, or town council review?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, going back to the assessors. You're kicking it off, Paula?
Well, you guys all have,
We need to, is this a,
Yes,
Do
you
you need to open this?
please do read and open.
all right, pursuant to the provisions of Chapter 40, Section 56, Mass General Law, notice is hereby given that the Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, November 15th, 2022, at 6:45 p.m. in the Eldon F. Marrera Board of Selectmen Meeting Room, Town Hall, 65 North Main Street, West Bridgewater, to consider the issue of adopting the residential factor and tax levy percentages for fiscal 2023. Interested parties are invited to be present and to be heard. And this was posted Thursday, October 27th, 2022. Is there a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
all right, we want to try to keep this nice and simple. You
Perfect.
guys all have the packet. I know this tax stuff is so boring.
Hey, hey, hey.
No. Come on. But you guys all have the packet that Ann put together. Everything seems pretty straightforward. And I think it's pretty much the same as that we do every year. All the little pie chart, graphs, colors. And Ann is here to answer any questions you may have on it. So,
So I had a chance to review it a little earlier. My question is really on the valuation this year. So looking at, I don't know the page number, but property class totals.
yeah.
And then looking at the average value, the bottom row on each of the three sections. So it just seems, I don't know, it just stands out that the residential increased 12% while the others only increased just over a single percentage. And I understand that 12% actually makes sense in this market. I have a hard time following the commercial and industrial, why those are only one point something percent, especially with inflation 6 or 7%. It just seems like those, I don't know, they just stand out.
And that's a good question, because for residential in town, we've had a lot of new development for residential and not a lot of new development for commercial and industrial. We also had a lot of sales, arm's length sales that qualify, that I can use to reassess the residential, but you didn't have a lot for commercial and industrial, almost none. So I didn't have anything to justify bringing up the values. And it's one of the questions the DOR said too, that's all you have, that's it? I said, yep. And she said, none of them qualify. I said, no. She goes, all right, you can't do much. So commercial and industrial for 2021, that's the calendar year of the sales. It just really wasn't a lot of arm's length sales that we could use. There were private sales, there were intercorp sales, which is, company sells to their own company, if this is the company or whatever. and there wasn't anything new, really. We already have a few subdivisions or lot splits, I should call them, for some of the commercial. So we should pick up a few this year, you know, for next year, but last year, no. It was residential, everything was residential, really. And it wasn't all of it, it was the 101s, which is the single family, the 102s, which is the condos, and the 104s, which was the two-family. We had 14 new two-families over on Cochise, off of Scotland. That's where all that is, you know. And then they're gonna split those two condos, so next year will be condos. So, but that's exactly why.
So I understand that, or I guess I don't understand the formulas, and I'm not gonna pretend to understand that, but thinking of it simplistically, it just seems hard to believe that, like, the value of Lowe's only increased 1% this year when we've seen real estate increase across the board substantially. That's
But
just.
I have to justify that. I can't just make Lowe's worth more money without something to back it. In 2020, you saw the first half of the year with no sales because of COVID, and the second half of the year slammed with sales because of COVID. For 21, those sales kept going, but mostly in residential. The corporations, the businesses, they were intercorping. They were
Mhm.
they were private sales, and I can't use those. Yeah. I can't go out of town and use somebody else's town sales for that. You know what I mean? We can
Yeah,
raise, which
I
we
get-
did,
yeah.
the percentage we did get was for, table, we updated the tables, so the cost of materials and stuff like that. That's always gonna be in there. But as for the sales, they weren't there, not for commercial and industrial this year, or for 21.
But wouldn't that create a dilemma year after year?
It shouldn't happen year after year.
But what you're saying is that you need comp sales, right? You
Yes.
need sales to occur in order to do comparable valuations.
Yes, and
So-
income and we have income and expense that we base our values off of for commercial property, for businesses. And not a lot of that changed. Just for 21, it was residential. That's where you saw the growth.
Well, I mean, these numbers just look odd.
I know.
They look peculiar.
But you still need
Have
the
other
place.
towns experienced this phenomenon?
Yeah, I talked to Jen Williams, she's a DOR rep, and she said it's happening everywhere. She wasn't surprised. But she expected a few more sales, arm's length sales. It wasn't, and she goes online, she looks in the DLS, she looks everywhere to see if I missed anything. She couldn't find anything.
And just for clarification, the changes that are listed on the top aren't really 2-year changes, they're 1 year. So like under 2023, where it says change from 21, that should really be changed from 22.
I think it's just a small typo.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, you're
Okay.
right, I missed that, I'm sorry.
No,
Yeah.
that's okay.
Does that mean last year the commercial went down? And then this year it's going up?
Yeah, so it really doubled when you looked at percentage, but
Right.
it's,
Which, when you look at it that way, seems more realistic to me.
Yeah, in 2020, the sales were crazy for commercial and industrial. Yeah. And residential, it was across the board. 2021, people are still buying anything out there for residential, but not so much for commercial and industrial.
so what happens in a small community like ours if this continues, if next year you're looking at, you don't have a group from which to do a comp value? I mean, this will continue, right? Presuming that home values don't increase at this enormous percentage.
Well, you want them kind of to grow together so that you can keep your split, because you need a percentage, and you will. It's rare that this happens, but it's happening everywhere, because the businesses aren't getting the business that they used to. Hopefully it picks back up, you know?
Any other questions on this?
So we're saying the values of residences went up 12%.
Which I fully believe. I mean,
Yeah.
that doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah,
I
just
just-
looking at the numbers, and 6% last year. A lot of growth.
Yeah, I mean, 7% of that is inflation, really. I mean, we've had substantial inflation over the past year.
True. No, I have no other questions. I don't think I have any other questions. Next, we're going on to the what-if scenarios, right?
Yeah, so we are currently at the split of 144.
1.44, right?
Yeah. But this year is tough with with the valuations for residential increasing substantially. Does anyone have a recommendation on the split, or?
So the hard part about this is the limit of the 1.5. And that's really the difficult part, is that you can only go up to 1.5. And even at that, the commercial and industrial will receive a reduction in their bill. But once you go to 1.5, where do you go next year?
Yeah, I agree. I mean,
You're at the
I know
max,
we've
and
disagreed
that's
with this for the
dangerous.
past couple of years. I've wanted to keep it in the 1.3 something range, and I entirely understand that, and I agree.
I do too. I'd be tempted to leave the split the same. I mean, we don't want to raise it too much. I mean, we can't increase it on the residences.
Well, we would be increasing it because the average tax bill is going to go up $451 per year at the 1.44. So while we're not increasing the split, we're definitely increasing the tax bill. I mean, there's no option but to
Yeah,
increase
there's
the
no
tax bill.
option.
It's just a matter of by how much. And again, I go back to a water treatment plant, the field. When you put all that together, even at the minimum, even if, and I'm kind of going backwards a little bit, but let's say the residents do vote for Article 2, that was what, $250?
Yeah.
Okay, and then if you stay at 1.44, you add $250, $450, there's $700 in their tax bill, without even talking about a water treatment plant.
We've been extremely conservative in the past.
I think as a board and as a town, we've operated reasonably, and I think we've been fiscally responsible, but we had no control over what has happened to the commercial and industrial and the residential assessments. The market's driven it.
So
And
what's your?
inflation, to add that to it as well.
Well,
What's happening in the economy, we have no control over.
No, and the commercial industrial are pretty close to the same. There's a little bit of an increase. It's the residential that went up so much. And that,
It's inflation.
that's a spike, that's also COVID spike, because you're talking calendar year 2021.
Right. These 12% increases are only good if you're looking at selling your house.
Right,
If you're looking at living there,
right.
it's not doing you any good
Yeah.
from an affordability
But
perspective.
a lot of people that decided to keep their house did improvements on it too. You know, they added the second floor, they added an addition to the back, you know.
Well, I'm around 1.46. Still again, when I factor in what else is coming up, even at, an additional 382 a year, 4-year real estate taxes plus 250, because I think at least Article 2 is gonna pass. I can't imagine it's going to get voted down. Could be wrong, but I suspect it will.
Mhm.
It will pass.
I would not be opposed to 1.46. I, for the first time ever, agree that we have to go that direction.
So I will make a motion for the split to be 1.46.
Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Any further discussion?
We just have to be mindful in the future. But yeah, no, I'm good with that.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Well,
All right.
thank you.
Thank you guys.
Robert?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, next on the agenda is approve the meeting minutes of October 5th.
So moved?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Except for review the meeting minutes of October 19th.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. There's a request to sell Christmas trees in wreaths November 26th through December 20th by the Bird Boys Foundation. Is there a motion to approve and waive fees since it's a nonprofit?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Public comment period.
I have a comment.
Oh.
Actually, I have a question. Don't look so surprised. So let's go back to Article 1 for a minute. All right, and Mary's point of all this new growth and stuff that we have, because we have a zillion new houses coming in, you're gonna end up with, we'll say every house has minimum one child going into the school. And there's a lot of houses coming in. So how is that gonna affect then all these school choice kids? Because we're gonna run out of room at the schools. And then all these new families and stuff coming in, if we did go for Article 1, how are we gonna pay for all the extra services we're now gonna need to provide for all these new residents? Because there's a buttload of houses coming in.
School committee meetings are Monday nights, about a half mile away. For question one.
Well, I mean, I think this is something that people have to consider. You know, because, yeah, I mean, it would be great to have this big, huge mega facility, and I get that. But Denise's point, and I don't always agree with Denise, but
I'll
I
second
gotta
that.
say. You know, but I gotta say, I agree with her on this one. We gotta
Yeah.
think far ahead here, because the water treatment plant, absolutely, another, rebuilding the school or whatever the heck we're doing. You know, and then we gotta go back to thinking too, all right, with the high school, we've already had problems where things weren't maintained. We just had to put another, a furnace or whatever in it last year. Is everything being maintained on the new school now? Is there gonna be more expenses that we're gonna be getting hit with? Because, if I remember correctly, the school was talking about adding additional teachers from COVID money. COVID money's gone. How are they gonna pay for that? They're gonna be coming back looking for more money for the teachers that they hired. So I hope when, when all you guys considered Article 1, all that stuff was factored in, because that's gonna be a lot of money that hit for these residents. And as a taxpayer, I don't think I like this. All this extra stuff coming in. We need to do something to limit our growth, or at least slow it down and get it under control.
If, in my opinion, if we were in a different economy, where not only were you seeing growth in home values, but you were also seeing growth in incomes, and we didn't have inflation at the rate we have now, that would be the perfect scenario for an $18 million project. But we're not in that economy.
No, I agree, and we don't know where we're going with that.
I actually think we've seen significant increases in wages. But
Really, maybe you have.
Well, if you look at the houses being built and the families moving in, it does seem to have a different wage level.
yeah, the houses being built are gonna bring in $78,000 tax bills, most likely. I think that new developments. So
More than
obviously there's
that,
gotta
yeah.
be costs as well with those. We're gonna have to plow the roads. There's definitely gonna be costs associated with any new development. Incrementally, I don't think as much, but yeah, there'll definitely be additional costs.
Well, but that's the thing, and I'm just curious if all of this has been thought through. I mean, everybody just wants to have this great new complex, which, yeah, it's great, like, the kids need definitely more stuff here. But with the economy and everything else, we gotta prioritize. What's more important, the complex, or, the whole water issue, or the new school, or, we may have to look at the new complex and do it in increments. Being fiscally responsible means sometimes making the hard choices like that.
We'll see you December 5th.
Oh, I'll be there. All right, that was my comment.
That's it?
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Town administrator's report.
Sure, so, as you know, under ARPA funds, which is a holdover from a coronavirus, support money that was passed at the federal level, we received basically 2 tranches of money. This here, if you could just scroll over a little bit, thank you. $762,000 is money that was received directly into the town, and if you forward a little bit more to the right, a little bit more, thank you. $1.4 million went to the county, Plymouth County. And the intent is that Plymouth County then would then distribute the funds to us like they did with CARES. I was on the phone with the executive director of Plymouth County and treasurer about 5-6 weeks ago. And in talking to Tom O'Brien, he said the commissioners, not him, but the commissioners for Plymouth County had voted to only release 50% of those funds to the municipalities, which was news to me, because this really is our money. And so Denise is on the Plymouth Advisory Committee, so I called her. And one always looking to go and challenge somebody said, I can't wait to go to that meeting, and she did. But if you don't mind sharing your experience, because I think what Denise is going to say is what I have found out in talking to my counterparts is that either no one or almost no one knows that Plymouth County has made this decision.
So I attended the meeting via Zoom a few weeks ago, 2 weeks ago roughly, and confirmed what David just said, that although roughly $1.4 million was received, our expectation was for the town of West Bridgewater to receive approximately 1.3 after administrative fees were deducted. And they did confirm that a vote was taken, and their decision was to allocate approximately 50% of the funds to the towns. When I asked what their rationale was behind that vote, they explained that they were looking towards doing some regional projects that would benefit larger masses than just one town. And that would have a benefit to the town, but not necessarily what we specifically state we needed. And I explained to them, this is a vital need. This water treatment plant isn't a nice to have, it's a must have. And that we need the full funding. Went back and forth a little bit. They said, you can certainly apply for all of the funds. There's nothing stopping us from putting in our paperwork for all of the funds, or our request for all of the funds, and they'll review it. And the call pretty much was very quiet at that point. No one else from any of the other communities had too much to say. I believe that's because they were not aware of this. That's the way it seemed to me. So from this point, what we need to do is figure out what we're going to do to try to acquire the full funding. I think the water department needs to prepare whatever the Plymouth County Commissioners expect to receive in good form for the full funding. I think we need to support that 100%, whether we need to send a letter ahead of time informing the Plymouth County Commissioners that we have a vital need for the full funding and that our water commissioners will have, or we include, what their recommendation is. I think we should ask David to steer this in that direction, but we need and we want the whole $1.3 million.
Yeah, I think what was frustrating during my conversation was the fact that they had said that Plymouth County, one, has priorities of its own, and two, is that they're looking to do regional priorities, but again, of their recommendation. And historically, municipalities, if they want to be able to do a regional program or project, they group with another town. For example, Bridgewater Raynham School District. They said, let's have a regional school district, and so it was driven from the municipality and they had local self-determination as to how they spent the money and voted on it. In this case here, Plymouth County appears that what they would say is that what we believe to be good regional projects is what we would like to steer and use the money for. I'm interpreting that it's more for what Plymouth County really wants to do, not necessarily what the municipality wants to do. So, you know, I was really happy that Denise went there because I want to make sure that I wasn't missing anything. And obviously I wasn't. You can see that these are the two votes that they took. This is off their website. So they're showing that they have only released 50% of the funds. And so with CARES funds, you had to submit after you spent the money in order to seek reimbursement. I certainly don't want to spend 1.3 million and told I can only get 685 back. But if there is a way, if you guys want to, if you want me to write a support letter and have you sign it and we send it, and as I said to Denise earlier, it might make sense if we are rebuffed, then maybe boards of selectmen and a council in Bridgewater, but maybe multiple towns should talk to each other and say we need to have multiple towns, like where you're on OCPC and you're engaging with the other board members, is be like, look, as a region, we should be having this conversation because Plymouth County receive funds and they receive municipal funds. So these are our funds, and honestly, we should not have to beg for it. They received what the federal government provided them. We should be able to receive 100% of what the federal government said that we should be entitled to.
And the other issue I have with this is that we were specifically asked back in 2021, around July, you know, what are our needs? And one of the criteria was that a water treatment facility, we could earmark it for that. It was included, and there was a need for it, a vital need for it. We earmarked it for that, and now we're being told we can only get 50%. That's not right. I mean, there may be regional projects that are needed, but clean water is pretty vital.
Any idea what those are, the projects?
No
No.
idea.
Do they know?
If they do, they did not share.
So probably not.
And quite frankly, I can't think of a project more important than clean water. And what was the estimate? Do we have an estimate yet for a water treatment facility? I want to say 7 million, but I could be way off.
No, you're not. You're not at all. I was told somewhere between 7 to 9 million. I looked it up in the minutes. July 7th of 2021 is when this board voted to earmark that money, and so it's great to have $1.3 million in theory to put towards it, but that means that you're still bonding $6-7 million.
And I'd hope that the term of the bond would be at least 30 years,
But I do not know.
but we don't know that. So,
Is there a motion to have David write a letter?
I'd like to make a motion that we have David reach out to other communities to see where they are on this, see if they are aware, see if they would support either writing an individual or a collective letter to Plymouth County in stating that we want full funding.
Was there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Even if other communities aren't interested in going at this together, we should still go after those funds.
Yeah,
Mhm.
absolutely. Unless it's regional water. Maybe it's regional clean water.
Well, if it's regional clean water, that's not going to cost us anything, then maybe. But if we have to share, I don't know.
The next item on the agenda is this says potential legislation on the agenda. And the reason being is because when I put my notes together in October on this, I had a webinar through the state, and I was going to share it with the board on November 2nd, and I failed to put it on the agenda. I placed it on the agenda, then doing my homework, it turns out, I'm going to assume sometime in October it passed. So as people know, Social Security receives a COLA adjustment based on the CPI index in September of every single year. And this year, it was going to be about 8.5%. And so retirees in the state of Massachusetts, or advocates for retirees, lobbied the legislature going into an election and said, why is it that they receive 8%, and by state law, we only receive 3%? And the legislature apparently said, you're right, we should do something. And so they voted to increase the COLA adjustment on retirees from 3% to 5%. So if you're a retiree, that's great. But we all know by state law, our FY23 budget must be passed by June 30, and we passed ours on May 9th. So I don't really understand how the state can now charge us 2% more when they know we passed our budget 6-7 months ago. In any event, Plymouth County provides us an invoice. That's where we go to town meeting to fund. I do always add a few dollars, not a lot, but I add a few dollars to it, because if somebody does retire in the middle of the year, I have to have funds to be able to pay that. And I don't always know. Quite frankly, many times, the employee doesn't know. They wake up in October and say, I'm done, I'm retiring. So anyway, so with that said, I did a calculation on this. It looks like our maximum exposure, because this is a one-time increase for FY 2023. Now, I've almost never seen increases that they claim as one time to never become in perpetuity. So we'll see what the legislature does next year. But at least at this point, the vote was specific to FY 2023. Our maximum exposure, from what I can tell, is $78,650. I highly doubt that it will be that high, because not everybody is going to get the full increase. But I'm just giving it as an FYI. I am hoping that we'll have enough money at the end of the year. We will know after Plymouth County sends us the bill. And again, it's one of those bills, you just pay it. Like we don't have any flexibility over it. When I present it as part of the benefits budget, we don't have any flexibility on it. We just don't, I've never seen where in the middle of the year that number gets adjusted. So just an FYI that it might be something we have to try to figure out how to cover. And the last is in reference to electricity. We keep on talking about inflationary pressures, and we know that the same is on electricity. National Grid in the top right-hand corner for its winter rate has gone to $33,891 for its rate. On the top 969, that is the number that I signed back in 2017. Constellation Energy is the primary supplier of municipal buildings for energy. They are vetted through the MMA and usually have the best prices in the market. So I've been meeting with that rep consistently over the past month, and you can see that in 1014 is that she quoted me for the highest or longest duration out to 2029, 1556. What I do is I took our current annual kilowatt use, I times that by that rate. That means for an annual year, we would then have a bill of $335,000, which means that we would then run $126,000 more in what our current estimated cost is for electricity. Vast increase, but much cheaper than National Grid. Pricing on electricity, because it's sourced in the energy markets, is on a daily basis. So she literally sends it to me every day, and every day I do this calculation. And over the last 30 days, the least expensive day we've ever had was on November 10th, came in at $14.82 for a term through 2028, which means over the course of the entire year, we would pay about $110,000 more. So what I'm asking tonight from the board is that I only have 2 more weeks before our contract expires, and I can't call a board meeting as we couldn't in 2017. I can't call a board meeting on the day that rates are set. So what I'm asking is for the board to provide authorization to me through a vote so I can execute the contract. I will continue to secure daily pricing, and if I see pricing that comes in anywhere around that 1482 again, I'm going to grab it, because I think that that's gonna be our best bet. Obviously, if something comes in cheaper, we'll grab it as well. If it came in cheaper on shorter term, I may still roll the dice and try it, but quite frankly, looking further out, our capacity constraints are only going to continue to grow as we are not building more power plants. So I just want to be able to grab the cheapest rate on behalf of the town, and I'm just looking for your vote to be able to do that.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So, David, if you look at November 10th, right?
Yep.
And go down the chart, the rate below that, does that mean if you went for a contract to 2024, the price would be 0.1648, but if you agreed to a contract through 2025, it would be 0.1550?
Yes.
Okay,
So
the
why don't you
longer
scroll
the
over?
longer the term, the lower the rate.
Usually, although you'll see in some of the out years, like in 2010, in November 10th, you could see a 6-year contract through 2029 actually was a tad higher. And the same thing on November 15th as well. That tells me that, again, they believe that there's going to be some increase for whatever reason. You'll see in the top left-hand corner, we had signed a contract from 2017 through 2022, and that locked in the rate of 969 for the duration of all of those years. So that's what I would be looking to do, and it creates some type of price stability for us. And our kilowatt use stays fairly consistent. It's not like we add buildings. Even if you add employees, you're still putting a light on. Like I have 4 employees in here or 2, it's the same light bill. So
Yeah.
we're fairly stable on that. So that's why it's good for us to look at out years and try to get the price as cheap as possible. So if all of this was available to me again tomorrow, I would pick the 6-year contract, 2022 through 2028, lock it into 1482, knowing that in year 1, we're looking at a $110,000 increase. But if you scroll all the way to the right, you'll see that if we take the national grid, it would be $522,000. So in essence, I'm saving $410,000 by locking in that rate. So that's what my intent would be.
They won't give us any sort of caveat that if the rate went down by X points, they would give us any sort of reduction at all?
No. So once you
No
sign the
over and
contract.
under, I guess.
Yeah, once you sign the contract, you're locked in, because you actually literally, Constellation is in the energy markets, and they buy, in this case here, if I do 6 years times 2 million kilowatts, they're actually making a commitment to purchase 12 million kilowatts over those next 6 years. They make the transaction, they need me to sign for that day, they handle Constellation, then fronts the money, and then I pay them over that time period.
Do you happen to know what the aggregation rate?
I did, because I looked at that. The aggregation rate is 11.3. So it was interesting that you bring that up. So I reached out to our aggregator immediately, because they said, well, we'll just jump on the aggregation rate.
Yeah.
But I was told no. So I'm researching that, and if I can get on there, I will. But the issue is that the aggregation rate, they are getting crushed right now with anybody new coming on. Because now they did not buy, when they went out to bid, we gave them a kilowatt usage number based on the aggregation of the town that excluded us. Because we weren't on it. We didn't sign up for it.
Oh.
So now, because we use 2.1 million kilowatts a year, they don't have that capacity. So if I jump on it, they have to go and buy kilowatts today at today's rate, vastly over the 11.3.
Mhm.
So if you're a residential consumer and you do, 12,000 a year, they already build that into their models up front, because they know when you move into that home, somebody else moved out. So it may not be a net difference of much. They also build into their models any potential new construction. So they kind of figured that in as well. But our load at 2 million would literally be the equivalent of probably of 100 homes. And they just didn't build that into their model. So I'm not saying it's entirely quote unquote dead yet, because I've been negotiating back and forth with him. What he really wants me to do, and I've been saying no, is he wants me to reopen the aggregation contract. And what he's saying is, let me go out to bid with, instead of 20 million kilowatts, 22 million kilowatts. And maybe I can get the price at 13.5, which would save us money over that 1482.
But not the residents
Yeah.
that
Bingo.
are already, yeah.
So what his argument though is wait a second, that residential customer between 1135 and 1350 is going to pay $78 more over the course of a year for electricity. But here, you're gonna charge them $110,000 more in tax dollars. So their tax bill has to go up.
But that's
So-
110,000 over the life of the contract, not,
No,
oh,
that's
that's
per
per
year.
year. Oh, yeah,
Per
that's
year.
right, that's per year.
So what he's
Yeah,
saying
yeah.
is do the calculation.
Right.
And you might find that that residential customer that pays $78 more is gonna pay $108 more in taxes. So now they're actually saving $30. I'm like, yeah, but Mark, I can't, that's almost an impossible calculation to definitively prove. So what I have done is I've requested from National Grid all of our bills over the last 6 months, because ours is just paper. There's no electronic access to it. And we have, scroll over 1 second, it doesn't say, but we have 55 accounts. So I have to pull 55 accounts for 6 months for us to do an analysis through them, and we're waiting on National Grid. They still haven't pulled the bills, but we've asked them to. And we're gonna send it over. If I can come up with some reasonable calculation that makes sense, where ultimately it helps the taxpayer and it helps the municipality, then instead of purchasing something, I'm gonna come back on December 7th and we'll have to make that change. But I do feel a little bit uneasy on it, because there are residents out there that have signed up for it, and now we're going to say, hey, your rate's gonna go up.
When does that expire?
2024?
So, does the contract actually not allow to deny the town to join the program?
They have a right on a force majeure clause to be able to stop a large user from jumping on. A typical residential customer, because that's what it was designed for, is residential. When you look at the savings numbers that I present once a year to you, you'll see that almost no industrial, no commercial customers jump on it. It's almost all
But they
residential
can't?
based. They could at the time up front.
They
When-
can't join now, like Lowe's couldn't join now. Lowe's probably bids out theirs
That's correct.
independently as well.
Exactly.
So they couldn't either?
If they have the ability to petition, but the aggregator has the ability to say no if their usage is too high.
Okay. And I mean, would think would be considered commercial, right, in their eyes? And then,
Based on our usage. I mean, we're a
and
heavy
just
user.
the purpose is, it's not residential, obviously.
Right. But that's why I did reach out to him. So there is a glimmer of hope that we could do something, but that glimmer of hope does come with a caveat that we have to reopen the contract. And if they rebid it out, I mean, quite honestly, if they rebid it out and they were at 1420, it's not worth the savings. If they rebid it out and it came in at 1210, it would be worth the savings to everybody. But they can't rebid it till they get all the bills in, and I'm still trying to get National Grid to forward all the bills. But I don't believe, Constellation is one of the biggest suppliers in New England. There is no way, I believe, and again, I'm speculating, but there's no way that Constellation, with the millions and millions of kilowatts that they buy every single day in the market, that if they could come in at 1482, that Colonial is going to come in 2 cents below that. It's just not believable. Because if Constellation could get it and they're much smaller, then, I'm sorry, if Colonial could get it, then Constellation could get it. You know, so, all of this, Constellation, Colonial, National Grid, every single player, Direct Energy, is all regulated through the Department of Public Utilities. So one doesn't have a bigger margin than the other. You know, it's like, oh, you know what, they're trying to make more money than the next guy. It's all heavily regulated. So their profit margins are all the same. So I do not believe that that's going to be a viable option, but I have looked at it, I'm working on it, but I do not believe it ultimately becomes a viable option.
We're not required for any green energy, right, by the state? I know they passed legislation on state facilities. We're
They
not, are
did.
we?
On our aggregator, we did not require it.
But for municipal buildings.
That is correct. That is correct.
So basically, they're speculating that they'll be able to go on the market and get pricing so that they can offer us that 0.1482. And I'm going to speculate that's also not based on volume, that's also based on an expectation that prices are going to come down. I don't think that's unreasonable to speculate, but certainly they're not gonna come down nearly to where we were.
Right. So I know from the municipal aggregator contract, their margin on it is 0.0001. So they make 0.0001 or 1/10 of 1 cent on every kilowatt that is sold. Obviously not a big margin.
Right, right.
But again, regulated
But
through the state.
volume.
But volume matters. So
Right.
my point is that I'm willing to bet that Constellation is probably in the same margin business because they're all gonna be approved through the Department of Public Utilities. So when they go, my guess is that they are buying electricity from 2022 through 2028 for $14.81, and they're selling it to us for $14.82. That's my guess. And that is why I can't believe that Colonial could go out there and get it at $12.50.
Yeah.
It just, I feel like it's an effort of futility at this point, but because I don't want to speculate and I don't obviously swim in the energy markets on a daily basis, I'm not going to, I'm going to do the homework on this and try to have real numbers. But my gut tells me this is going to be the better deal, and I just need flexibility to execute once the best deal is in front of us.
All right, it sounds like we're all pretty much on the same page, and I have no issue with having the town administrator authorized to enter into a contract on our behalf.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.